Hello, hello, Jordan Chariton, live Status Coup. It is Tuesday, November the 14th, here in the United Corporations of America. Now, welcoming back return fighter Steve Grumbine of The Real Progressives. I was off for a little, well, not really off. I've been writing a fucking book nonstop, finally finished. So I was off for a few weeks. Steve was off. Well, not off. You were doing your thing too, but happy to have you back. Steve Grumbine, co-founder of Real Progressives, which if you have not yet subscribed, go subscribe. Real Progress in Action on the YouTube. And I got to tell you, Steve, obviously there's a lot going on. We know that there is I guess genocide is an understatement at this point. Just a horror film, horrific genocide and slaughter going on in the Middle East, which we've been covering. If you missed the video we posted earlier of John Farina, actually covered a protest that had a lot of children at it with their parents, calling for a ceasefire and supportive of Palestine. So go check that out. But we wanted to cover today, I would say, something positive that you and I have been talking about for many years, and that is if we're going to take down or even put a dent in this corrupt one-party corporate seizure of a government, it's going to have to heavily involve labor, a resurgence of labor. If we could have a general strike, I think labor is going to have to be a big part of that. And Bernie Sanders, holds these hearings from time to time. He's the head of the HELP committee. It stands for Health, Education, something else. And he loves these hearings. He's the chairman because he gets to bring people in and talk about his happy issues. Obviously, it's not effective in terms of getting any legislation done, but it allows Bernie to be Bernie. But this hearing today, I thought, was very, very informative. Kind of wild. There was almost a physical altercation between a Republican senator and a union head. So we'll definitely show that. But I want to play some of the clips because this UAW strike, which we covered extensively and we're not done covering because the votes are still going on, I think overall it will pass, but it's a lot closer than people thought. We'll go through and give an update on the voting a little bit later. As of now, Ford workers are almost done voting on the tentative agreement. General Motors workers are a little further behind, but almost done voting. Stellantis workers are not done voting. But at the moment, it looks like it will pass, but it's not going to be by like 80% approval. It's going to be more narrow, maybe 60 to 70%, maybe less, which is the point of a union. So the workers have a say, and if it passes, it passes, but it's not going to be overwhelming, which I'm sure the UAW would like. But in this hearing today, it was billed as kind of the resurgence of labor hearing. And Sean Fain, the UAW president, was speaking. Sean O'Brien, the head of the Teamsters, Sarah Nelson, who you know and love, head of the airline, the flight attendants union. She's been fighting the good fight for years. There was some, Republican Ayn Rand, Republican speakers from the Heritage Foundation explaining why unions are terrible. So we cut up a few clips, and we will get to the off the rails part later, because again, there was literally almost a physical fight that Bernie Sanders, of all people, had to get in the middle of. But Colin, whatever order you have, I want to show these because it also shows the positive ripple effect that this UAW strike, even if you're a UAW worker watching, maybe you didn't get everything you wanted. I don't think any of you would say it's worse than years previous. This is a lot better deal than in years previous. But the ripple effect is very clear. You're seeing hikes. Toyota is raising wages for workers, non-union. Honda, Hyundai, Tesla, all because of the gains UAW just made. Let's start whatever you got from the hearing.
Over the last 50 years, despite huge increases in technology and worker productivity, the average American worker is making about $50 a week less than he or she did 50 years ago. How did that happen? And I can remember growing up in a working class family in a working class neighborhood. Back then, it was a few years ago. Most families had one person working, mostly men. How does that happen? One worked, and today, almost without exception, you need two breadwinners to support the family. How does that happen despite all of the new technology and increase in worker productivity? And some of the realities of today is that right now, we have more income and wealth inequality than.
So God bless Bernie, but you get his spiel. I don't need to play the whole thing. It's good information. Obviously, what he's saying is true. But I want to play this next clip because this is the Republican counterpart who is basically saying, if there's a labor surge, why do we have to hold this hearing? If everything is wonderful, what's the point of this hearing? If we could play that, Colin.
Chair Sanders has acknowledged the progress that has been made by organized labor, which creates kind of, in my mind, a little bit of a puzzlement as to why we're having the hearing. We're not conducting oversight, and there doesn't seem to be a legislative purpose. The title of this hearing suggests that unions are functioning well, and it appears that they are, and that means that partisan legislation like the PRO Act is not necessary. Unions have a good message, apparently, about their ability to negotiate contracts on behalf of their members. If that's true, then they don't need the PRO Act to eliminate secret ballot union elections, which could expose workers to retaliation and intimidation. Unions shouldn't need the PRO Act to open workers to forced or coerced unionization by banning right-to-work laws in states like Louisiana, my state, that protect workers' freedom to choose whether to join a union or not. And they should not need, unions should not need the PRO Act or the Biden administration to impose radical joint employer rules to make it easier to unionize the 8 million franchise workers while undermining the business model of the establishments which employ them. If unions can convince workers that it is their best interest to join, then there shouldn't be changes to the independent contractor definition. This policy included in the PRO Act would take away the ability of 27 million workers to choose how to earn a living. Why? Well, effectively to make them susceptible to forced or coerced unionization. Now, I support a worker's ability to unionize. The right of workers to organize and be represented by a union is protected under the National Labor Relations Act.
Clearly, he supports a right of workers to unionize. I wanted to get your thoughts on that because he's basically saying, well, if things are so swimming, why do we need to hold a hearing on, the surge of organized labor? I would argue things are not so swimming. This is a brief victory, one we haven't had in a long time, but you still have essentially Amazon, Starbucks, and all these corporations. There's no criminal penalty for union busting. There doesn't seem to be a penalty for Amazon, who lost to the Amazon labor union over a year ago. They still haven't come to the bargaining table. So yes, Amazon technically has a union now in Staten Island, but no contract. Basically, the National Labor Relations Board, which has been better, I would say, under Biden, has very little enforcement mechanism. The only real enforcement mechanism that organized labor has in America is what you just saw with the UAW and going on strike.
Yeah, I mean, for the last 50 years, we've seen wages basically flatline. I mean, the same pay from like Y2K, and you still got the same pay going on in 2023, excuse me. I think that unions themselves having a minor victory, it feels really good, but I don't want that to overshadow. And this is exactly, I think, the point of this segment here is we don't want a mini victory to overshadow all the losses that labor has had since, I don't know, since the 60s and 70s even. So when you see something like this happen, these guys, all they have to do is say, see, and this is part of the problem because we want to celebrate this as like some major victory. It is a victory. It's not a major victory. We need to show clearly that something like this should have been going on for the last 50 years, should have never not been going on. And that because of all the losses for all that time, there's no way of making up for all the unmet medical needs, all the unmet house needs, all the unmet education needs, all the unmet ability to be with your kids because you're working overtime to make ends meet. There's so much that has been missed over the last 50 years. I mean, I hate to use the word reparations for labor, but of sorts, you have to think about the fact that this is such a minor victory in the grand scheme of things. If you look at the adjustments with inflation, even though they're saying inflation's coming down, one of the things that's not coming down is prices. And people's, without their wages going up, it still feels like shit for the average worker. So let's not get too far ahead of ourselves. And guys like that, I mean, I remember when I was in the union in Northern Virginia at the phone company. It was in local CWH, local 2222. And
this was back in 1927, right?
In 1927, exactly. Don't let the gray fool you, right? No, it was really probably around 1994, 95, 96 time frame. And Bell Atlantic at the time would go on strike. And, the management would be taking the trucks from them. They would be out there rolling. And you were left with nothing. You were left with go flip dough at the pizza place and maybe a couple $100 a week when you were used to making, I don't know, $1,200, $1,300 a week as a family provider. So people have not really caught up, and having a right to work just allows the union to fail by people being able to cross the picket line by not honoring the labor stoppage for a contract that even a scab would get the benefit of. They get to win by working forced overtime and double time and all the other stuff. So I think it's pretty standard fare that Republicans and, quite frankly, even some Democrats still live in a weird mental world where they think capitalism works and that labor is, you got a free choice. Have you ever looked to see what kind of jobs are out there, to see what kind of choice you really have? It's not true. It's it's a lie. So when I see that, it just makes me angry because it's such a small victory, and to act like, hey, everything's better, I think fundamentally really, really distracts people from how massive the class struggle unionism that we need in this country is away from reality.
I agree with you and I disagree with you. I will agree in terms of when you look at the dollars and cents, it's a much bigger let's be clear. What the UAW just got is a much bigger victory than they would have got under the leadership, which was corrupt, even 2 years ago. I mean, 2 years ago, if the UAW got an offer from Ford for Ford, GM, and Stellantis of a 9 to 10% increase, they would take it immediately and say, this is amazing, live to fight another day. So the fact that Sean Fain and the UAW got these greedy, evil companies from really an insulting offer of 9 to 10%, which, remember, that's what the workers gave back in 2008 and 2009, to 25% in wages. When you factor in cost of living being reinstated, that financially gets you closer to about 29, 30%. And then there's other benefits. So it is a victory. But, and I'll give you an update on where the vote stands for the workers a little bit later. It's, I would say, a small victory in terms of a lot of the workers who are voting no are making the valid point that 25% sounds great, but when you factor in, we gave back 10% during the financial crisis under the guise of these, to save the companies, then inflation, which we're hearing is down again. We'll talk to Steve about that later. He's the expert. But when you factor in inflation, which hovered between 15 and 20%, okay, a lot of these workers who are voting no are saying this is ultimately a small increase because we're just getting back to where we were 13 to 15 years ago and accounting for inflation. This isn't like a significant merit pay because, again, we're just getting back to where we were 13 years ago plus countering inflation. Why I would say it's a bigger victory is because I don't think it's just about the deal they got. I think it's about the approach they took. We have not seen any form, let me repeat, any even iota of fuck labor, any type of left-wing working class militancy in this country, I don't know, since the 60s, maybe. The fact that Fain and Shore, a lot of people gave him shit and didn't like this approach of, hey, why are you doing some plants and not the others? Well, it seems that, and not just him, there was a lot of other negotiators. It seems like this three-dimensional chess and going from keeping them really off kilter. You start with a predictable schedule. We're going to announce new strikes every week, to then all of a sudden we're going to announce new strikes on unpredictable days. You go from smaller plants to then hit them at the largest, most profitable plants. It seems to have worked. But most importantly, it's the in-your-face aspect of it. It's the throwing the contract in the garbage. In this stuff, it is important. The psychology of it is important to galvanize workers. Workers have been checked out, cynical for the last 40 years, and rightfully so. But when I was on the ground, and Ron was on the ground, and Tina was on the ground, thanks to all of you, we were on the ground the first 25 days of this strike. Thank you, statuscoup.com/join. I saw really rejuvenated workers, some old timers and some newbies. And that's what it's going to take. That's why I think it's a bigger victory. It's about more than just the percentage of wage increase they got. It's about building on it. And you see Fain and the UAW are now openly trying to get other industries and other workers to line up the expiration of their contracts for 2028, so that all of them, the UAW, healthcare workers, teachers, you name it, can possibly go on strike at the same time. I know that's not what everybody wants to hear. We don't want to have to wait another day. But I've always said, and Steve, I think you agree, this is not going to happen overnight. This is not going to happen overnight. We needed a better deal now and an actual process to organize for the future.
Yeah, I want to agree with you. I mean, I think you took exception to the wrong thing. I wasn't suggesting that it wasn't a big deal in the sense of what you just laid out there. All I'm suggesting is don't get fat. Don't get happy.
Yeah.
Don't
or
think that this is, yes, this right here was you just put a little hole in the dam. This is not the rupture of the dam. This is just a pinprick. It's an important step because without it, there is nothing going forward. But it is just a pinprick. And what I really want to stress to folks, you know, I get lectured by people that are former union leaders and stuff that, oh, you're being too hard, Steve. You're not being optimistic enough. You just don't understand. Been a union, I do know. And also working with guys like Joe Burns who are talking about trying to revive the strike and trying to revive this concept of class struggle unionism. We are still atomized neoliberal individuals living in an isolated hellhole of existence. This is what neoliberalism has done to us. It's made all of us think that we're just individuals that have to fight for ourselves at the exclusion of others. We got to get that collective class level struggle back. And without that, there isn't the gains that you're talking about. The good news is the copycats, because they know that if plant A and plant B and plant C are making increased wages, they know now the new bar has been set, which is, by the way, the reason why I'm a strong proponent of the job guarantee. Not so much because, hey, what about unenabled bodies that want a UBI? Because it sets the bar. It does what this just did, but it does it universally, bumps it way the hell up, right?
Right.
So in my opinion, one of the most important things that comes out of this is that we're talking about labor. You're talking about, it's in the media, it's in people's ears and eyes. So, but then you see that guy talking and you realize there's a whole nother world. There's a whole nother group of people hearing a totally different message, a message of nihilism, a message of, why do you need a union? You're better than your neighbor. Why not just get all you can get? Why not make all you can get and fuck everybody else? And I think that Ayn Rand libertarian disgraceful lifestyle that they would put forward, that is so antithetical to progress, so antithetical to raising all ships. I think that we have to be aware of that. And there's been some people that have allowed the libertarians into the pride land, so to speak, given them a pass as if they're part of the gang. And the corrosion of that individualist, me first, hey, I'm better than you, so I should make more than you crap. That right there is very, very luring. It's very, very seductive. People think, well, I'm smart, I'm good, I can make more than them. And that union-mindedness is very, very distant to them. So we've got to be careful. We've got to keep selling collectivism. We've got to keep selling collective wins. And we've got to build that class struggle. I don't want to lose sight of that.
Absolutely. Poor Colin, I made him cut 17 clips, so we're not going to have time for all of them. So, Colin, I'm going to take it from here and just play the clips I want. But I'll probably go do another video and kind of react to most of them. But here's Sean Fain, UAW president, his first comments.
We want things our industry hasn't seen in over 15 years, victories that will instantly change people's lives overnight, getting back to setting the standard, giving people purchasing power to move the economy. Never in our history have we negotiated the reopening of a plant. We won victories that will instantly overnight change the life, and Belvedere, Illinois was written off for dead, as many people know. We not only got work back for that plant, but also a new battery plant. Both of these plants are going to add thousands of jobs to the Belvedere, Illinois community. That's what a union can achieve through collective bargaining. You know, there's far too much in our agreement to detail in a short testimony, but, you know, 4 of the major areas, we raised wages dramatically for over 100,000 workers. We took a major step toward ensuring a just transition in electric vehicles. We improved retirement security for hundreds of thousands of retirees. And lastly, we secured jobs. Job security was a major part of this bargaining for current employees and future members. And we bargained for language that allows us to strike these companies if they don't honor their commitments, which has been a huge issue in the past. You know, looking at the success of our contract, we're seeing that spill over into the non-union industry. After we announced our tentative agreements at the Big Three, Toyota made an unprecedented move and reduced their progression to full pay to 4 years from 8 years. They gave their employees a 9% pay increase. Honda raised wages 11%. And just yesterday, Hyundai announced that they're going to follow our pattern and raise wages by 25% for their employees through the year 2028. We call that the UAW bump, and that stands for You Are Welcome. And we're very...
So he might be kind of joking there, but first of all, this breaks the delusion and the capitalist gaslighting. Times are tough. We don't have the money from these companies. Colin, let's just go through the list. This is from CBS. Hyundai, Honda, and Toyota have all raised worker pay since UAW strike ended. On Monday, Hyundai announced that they will be increasing hourly wages by 25%. Over the next 4 years. I think it should be more, but let's be honest, without this UAW strike, they weren't getting shit. Earlier this month, Toyota said it would lift factory hourly wage between 9 and 10% starting in January, while Honda announced an 11% increase. There's also Tesla, Elon Musk and his fucking lunacy on Twitter or X or whatever. Tesla, at least abroad, increased by 4%. Why this is a beautiful thing, Steve. If I'm a non-union worker and I'm getting a 9% increase, 11% increase, why am I not going to then just try to go to UAW for the 25% increase? Or why aren't I going to say, you know what? Look what UAW just did. Let's start agitating here to form a union here. I mean, these companies will fight like hell to stop it, and they'll spend Amazon type money to union bust. But the point is, it is having a domino effect, which I said on the ground, this will have ripple effects because they're getting a bump in this day and age, 9%, 10%. Is that going to technically lift you out of poverty? If you're in poverty, no, but it will make it a little easier. If you are struggling working class, have a second job, maybe you don't need that second job anymore. Yep. It can make a difference, 9 to 10%. But again, it's about the collectivism that could, and the UAW has said they have gotten tens of thousands of emails and outreaches from non-union workers wanting to organize with the UAW. So that's what he's calling the UAW bomb. It's not because Sean Fain is you know, I like him. I think he's done a good job. It's not because he's brilliant. It's because he inspired these workers. I remember something he said at the big rally they held in Detroit on the first day of this strike. He said, we need to leverage our power. He kept using the word power. We do have the power. We have just been brainwashed and demoralized for the last 30, 40 years, particularly by politicians who talk like Fain, but then sell you down the river. Well, he's not a politician. Maybe he wants to be. I don't know. But he held out when a lot of the previous UAW leaders would have taken the initial offer. And I think between trying to line up contracts to expire at the same time, between collaboration between unions, you see UAW workers are supporting healthcare workers on strike, nurses on strike, and vice versa. I think that are we going to have a general strike tomorrow? No. But if we're ever going to have any type of general strike or any type of protest movement a la France, we're going to need actual organized, keyword, organized labor. Thoughts?
Absolutely. No, you nailed it. It's got to start somewhere. And the place it's got to start is where they have the ability to unionize. Think about it. It would be easy as hell for us as citizens to create a union of citizens, a union of voters, whatever you want to call it. However, we don't have the same impetus that a very, very specific job title or industry does with each other. So they get together daily, they work daily, they do their things daily. So there's camaraderie at a different level by being physically together with each other. It has to start somewhere, and I would suggest that it would have to start there. It would be nice to see regular people get together and organize and unionize ourselves and say, we're not going to take it. But I think that's just too tall an order, looking at how scattered most folks are right now with all the disparate news all over the channels driving them crazy. So this is absolutely essential step one.
Absolutely. Let me play the next clip. This was, I don't know, the Republicans on the committee invited some woman from the Heritage Foundation to push some Ayn Rand gaslighting bullshit. But this is still what the non-union workers at Toyota, Hyundai, most of Amazon, most of America, this is the message they constantly hear from a flood of consultants that these companies send into warehouses to talk them out of unionizing.
The UAW had such a single-minded focus on getting more money for their members that they forgot even to try to help out farmers, families, and other workers and unions. The Biden administration's electric vehicle mandate puts the economy at the mercy of government dictates in a planned economy that will destroy the livelihoods of small business, non-unionized workers, and eventually even unionized auto workers without making car companies more competitive or solving climate change challenges. This will put our children's future at the mercy of China. If the UAW were truly interested in helping its members and American families, it would have pushed for Detroit and other auto companies to try to continue to make the internal combustion engines and hybrids that Americans want to buy, rather than going all electric in 2035. What would help all American working families is getting rid of the Biden EV mandate, which you, senators, and the House of Representatives did not pass. Instead,
well, I didn't realize that it was actually the United Farmers workers, and it's the UAW's responsibility, apparently, to lift the farmers and solve climate change and all the rest.
You know what? For a second, I sat there and I was like, oh my God, is this woman really talking about class struggle? No, she's not. She's not at all. But when you heard her talking, okay, tell me honestly, did you not just literally want to pinch a loaf on her? I mean, everything about her screamed skibbity toilets. I mean, she was just the worst possible human being I've ever seen. It was leaps to China, this and China. Let me tell you, I don't believe in the electric vehicle boom to begin with anyway. I believe in mass transit. I believe that we're in the middle of a real genuine climate crisis, that this whole electric vehicle thing is more bourgeois, green capitalism that isn't going to work out for anyone. Okay. I think it's greenwashing. I think it's a lie. But that said, everything that this woman said right there is standard fare Ayn Rand crap. It's the libertarian stuff. Folks, if you understand why I'm constantly railing on libertarians, it's because that's what a libertarian is. What she just said is every bit of a libertarian's mindedness, okay? And without having, and I'm a big C, I'm a big gov guy. I'm a big central planning dude. Central planning with local administration distributed. I am that big C word, right? And when I see something like that, I was like, oh my God, is she speaking to my heart for a minute? And then she's like, oh, but it's bad. I was like, what the hell is that supposed to mean? I think it was awesome, actually.
Well, first of all, what's amazing about that, I'm not against electric vehicles. I just think we have to be honest, and the Biden administration and Democrats need to be honest. You could change it right now. Just eliminate electric combustion vehicles tomorrow. Obviously, that's not technically possible, but let's say it would be. Every car is electric. that is not going to solve the climate catastrophe, because the worst villain in the climate inferno is the United States Pentagon. The worst villains in the climate catastrophe is factory farming. I mean, I could go down the list of things that are destroying the planet. It's not that the combustion engine isn't a problem and that emitting carbon through, traditional vehicles isn't a problem, but that's not going to reverse the irreplaceable damage happening quickly enough. If you really want to put a dent in the climate inferno, and it's not just the United States, other countries too, we're just talking about the United States, you got to cut the military budget by 60% and dramatically change the machinery we're using, which is polluting the world. So electric vehicles, it's not a bad thing. It's a Band-Aid to a gaping, oozing gunshot wound, which is the things I just outlined. But also, it's not the UAW workers. Her first line was absurd. If the UAW wasn't solely focused on only worrying about raising their workers' wages, that's what they're supposed to fucking focus on. It's a labor union representing auto workers. It's not the United Nation of workers. They're not supposed to. It's not their responsibility to lift the farmers. I'm sure they care, but it's not their responsibility to deal with climate change. It's their responsibility to make sure their workers are not sacrificed on the altar of dealing with climate change, which was part of what they got, particularly GM, and mandating that any future electric plants are part of the union contract. But it was just asinine from first word to final word.
So you got two kinds of unions. You got corporate unions and then you got class struggle unions. And in a corporate union, you're exactly correct. Their responsibility is just to raise the wages in their very, very slim trough. And that's that. In order to really make progress, we need to expand that to be the way that you were saying. They need to be like the United Nations of unions, right? There needs to be a coalition of union heads talking about how to do that combined. Let's get our contracts lined up. Let's make sure we have joint power. Let's make sure we're fighting for everyone, right? But one of the things that's really important, I want to make very clear, Africa and the Arab nations have literally been propping up the global North's ability to extract and live in opulence and have all these individual electric cars and gas-powered cars and motorcycles and everything, SUVs, you name it. It's so bad in Tunisia. Tunisia has like 0.001% of the global carbon footprint. Yet Germany has come into Tunisia and have them produce, this is no joke, green hydrogen so that Germany can meet its climate numbers while simultaneously having to pay for coal in Tunisia. This is the game the global North is playing to meet these electric vehicles and all the other things that they're doing while extracting very, very harmful chemicals in those local regions and not providing any kind of safety for these people. It is such a predatory deal. I want to be clear because I do have guilty knowledge, so I'm not going to just not say it. I want to make sure I'm out front with that. I just spoke with an incredible man named Hamza Hamashen. If you get a chance, it's Dismantling Green Colonialism. And a lot of this shit is us, the North, acting like we're doing something great while we're simultaneously plundering the global South, extracting, basically turning them into an open-air slave center. And they don't even realize it, literally extracting profits, extracting real resources, all so that we can prop up these bougie ideas. And I think it's time that we lift the lid on that as well. I mean, we are global citizens. We need a union of global people to fight back against this capital order.
Absolutely. I want to play two more clips. We are going to get to the off the rails part because Bernie had to literally step in to avoid a physical brawl between a senator and Sean O'Brien of the Teamsters. But I want to give Sarah Nelson, who I think is the real deal and the future of organized labor. She's the head of the flight attendants union. Let's play her words.
Flight attendants and other workers are enraged that when they can't make ends meet, that they've got every person in the house working 2 and 3 jobs or overtime just to try to get by. And still scraping from paycheck to paycheck, that other people are living in lavish conditions. that airline executives are hiring private jets to fly them out of a city that no one else who has to buy a consumer seat can get anywhere from. They're absolutely outraged by it, and that's why they're organizing. Delta Airlines has made twice in billions what the other airlines have made. They have ridden off of the backs of the employees who have made that airline successful, and they have not paid the same in pay and benefits. And that's why Delta flight attendants, Delta mechanics with the Teamsters, and Delta ramp agents with the International Association of Machinists are organizing right now to try to take back what's theirs. As I said before, the SkyWest flight attendants have woken up to what their airlines have tried to do to pull the wool over their eyes, and they contacted us, and we're eager to organize. So we're supporting organizing for over 40,000 workers right now, with our union of just over 50,000 workers. And these airlines and these other companies are spending billions of dollars on union avoidance rather than investing in the companies to make them better for the consumer and the employees, wasting that money. But there's another way to go. And Microsoft has decided that it is better to sign a union neutrality agreement with the union to give the employees the free right to join the union. And when a worker comes to a manager to ask them what they should know about the union, they are giving the supervisors the instruction to tell them, go to the union website. That's how it should be done. That's what freedom is. And that's what it would look like to have a free society and an equal society, is to give workers the power to actually bargain their fair share.
Amen. Amen. And you want to know something? I know, I don't know directly from her. She didn't tell me this, but I've heard from other people. Sarah Nelson has been courted by the Democratic Party to run for office. Clearly, whoever was trying to court her from the Democratic Party might want to water down who Sarah Nelson is a little bit, or get her in there, let her speak her talk, get her in there as a congressman or whatever, and then try to neuter her. She's resisted that because she thinks she could be more effective as in the labor movement. Now, I'm not saying if you want to run for office, have at it. If you believe in electoral politics is the way to the Magic Kingdom, have at it. I've never said don't vote, but Steve and I have said major structural change is not happening through electoral politics. That doesn't mean no positive things could happen through electoral politics. But this corrupt system, the United Corporations of America, it's taken 40 years to build this corrupt, legalized system of bribery we have. And it's not going to be toppled overnight. And you're going to need people like Sarah Nelson, Sean Fain, Sean O'Brien from the Teamsters. No, they're not perfect. Everybody's imperfect, but a lot better than the corrupt goons of yesterday from UAW, AFL-CIO, the Teamsters. We're talking embezzlement, bribery, fat salaries, being in bed, union bosses with the head of these companies. So I say bravo to her. Any thoughts on what she said?
Yeah, I mean, I love Sarah. She, I have had problems with many of the people in her position, including her at times, who have given kind praise where I didn't feel it was necessarily deserved to politicians. But they're playing a different game. They're trying to make things happen at a totally different level than an activist does. But to see her fangs come out and to see her flex, I think that she is somebody who has all the natural appeals: strong voice, strong ability to marshal resources, strong ability to put together a coherent plan. I think that she has a lot to offer, and I think she would be good. If I believed in electoral politics, she'd be great. I think that someone like her is inspiring to others who look like her as well. I think that's important to see women rise up with this as well. I mean, Bernie said, if you go back to his first thing, he talked about how we were in a single income families back in the day. And now we got two people and we're still struggle busing to live with two incomes coming through the door. I think it's really important to understand how much of a role women have in society and how important they are on the labor lines as in this strike, or not just strike, but this whole push to bring about equality. I mean, world's changed, but the fact is that if you're working for a paycheck, you're labor. and that's your class, and it's time to fight as a class. And I like to see her speak the way she was speaking there.
And it's also time to smash that like button. Over 300 watching, but we need more. Keep those super chats coming. We're going to read them at the end. One more clip, because this was the off the rails part. Apparently, one of the Republican senators on the committee was not really interested in per se on the labor surge. Apparently, he was more interested in challenging the head of the Teamsters to a physical duel. I don't really know what happened between these two, but take a look.
Sir, I wish you was in the truck with me when I was building my plumbing company. Myself and my wife was running the office because I sure remember working pretty hard and long hours. Pretends like he's self-made. What a clown. Fraud. Always has been, always will be. Quit the tough guy act in these Senate hearings. You know where to find me. Any place, anytime, cowboy. Sir, this is a time, this is a place. If you want to run your mouth, we can be two consenting adults. We can finish it here.
Okay, that's fine. Perfect.
You want to do it now?
I'd love to do it right now.
Well, stand your butt up then.
You stand your butt up.
Oh, hold on.
Big guy.
Oh, stop it.
Is that your solution every
Hold
problem?
it. No, sit down.
Oh, you're a clown.
Sit down.
Look at you.
You know, you're a United States Senator. Sit down.
Active.
Oh, okay.
Sit down, please.
All right.
Can I respond? Mr.
Hold
Chairman?
it. Hold it. If
Hold
we
on.
can, no,
This is
I have
what
the
he
mic.
said.
I'm sorry.
This is
Hold
what
it.
he said.
You'll have your time.
Okay.
Can I respond?
Oh, no, you can't. This is a hearing. And God knows the American people have enough of contempt for Congress. Let's not
I don't
make
like
it worse.
thugs and bullies.
You have,
And that's
you
what-
have
I don't like
the
you
mic.
because you
Hold
just
it.
described yourself.
Hold it. You have the mic.
Yeah.
You have time.
All right.
Make your statement.
Then let's do this, because I did challenge you and I accepted your challenge, and you went quiet.
No, I didn't go quiet.
Hold on.
No,
You challenged me to a cage match,
No, no,
acting
no.
like a
Sir.
12-year-old schoolyard
Hold it.
bully.
Excuse
Sir,
me.
hold on.
Hold it. No, excuse me. I have the
I will
mic.
say exactly.
Senator
what you
Mullen,
said.
I have the mic. You have questions on any economic issues, anything that say, go for it. We're not here to talk about physical abuse.
You brought.
We're not
him
talking
in.
about, of course I did.
And let me show you his hearing, because I want to expose this thug to who he is. And
Could you not point at me? That's disrespectful.
All right.
I don't care about respecting you at all. I respect
don't
people that
respect you at all.
respect. So
All right, hold it.
let me
Hold it. No.
You're one of
Yeah,
100 of the most
Hold
elite
it,
people.
please.
Act it.
Please. All right. This is excuse me. This is a hearing to discuss economic issues. All right. If you have questions for Mr. O'Brien or anybody else on what he has said, go for it.
I mean-
But we're not here to talk about fights or anything else.
If I was only interested in clickbait, I would have led with that. But imagine Bernie with his grandkids. That was something else. Has nothing to do with what we've been talking about, but it was just entertaining to see. I guess the Teamsters had previously messaged the Republican shill some unkind words, and the Republican shill wanted to make hay about it. But there was Bernie, who, whether you're mad at Bernie or not, there's plenty to be upset with Bernie about these days. I did enjoy that.
I don't even know what to say, man. I mean, bottom line is that I wasn't sure who was who. I didn't know the guy from Adam.
That
I
was
didn't know him
that
from
was
Adam.
Senator Mark Wayne Mullen. I don't know if that's his porn name or his real name, but his Mark Wayne Mullen, Oklahoma senator.
The idea that the guy literally said that he would like, if he was in the truck, he would kick his ass and stuff like that is pretty hilarious. I'll just leave it at that.
And that was the senator with the head of the Teamsters. Anyway, point being, before we move on to the next topic, I think most of these Bernie hearings are kind of just Bernie wanting to be Bernie, but I think this was useful because I think something you said is really important. Sure, nobody wants this process of, reviving organized labor to take 20 years, but it's not going to take 1 year. It is going to be a process, but the fact that we're talking about labor, the fact that there's hearings about labor, the fact that there's even media coverage, the media is forced to cover strikes, union organizing. That is a significant improvement over, I would say, the last 20 years where we've all been in the wilderness.
It's fucking essential. I mean, the sad part is that clearly we know this isn't enough. Clearly we know this is not good enough for all. Everybody didn't win here, right? In the like right here, right now sense. But it is absolutely imperative that we start by building that, get that motion going, get that freaking turbine going here. Because without us moving, without us actually talking about this stuff, people are just, I mean, no offense to people. I mean, I'm people, right? But you start just being a lemming. You just sort of bounce in the walls. You just go with whatever's going on in the world. You can see it, people bouncing from topic to topic and jumping around and not staying focused. This is a focusing act. It may be small. It may be a small group of people that are really focused on it, but it starts there. It has to start there. And the communication is huge. We need that.
Well, I think what's also going to be essential, and we always talk about this with electoral politics, that you can't just organize during election year or the year before election year. You got to be organizing all the time. From what I've seen, this new UAW leadership is not going to just kind of take off now, because not that they have not officially, approved the deal, but it does not seem they're just, once the deal is approved, gonna, wait till the next contract. It seems that they're going to continue organizing, trying to build UAW, make relationships with other unions, and plot the next potential strike to be even bigger. And that's what you got to do. It's tiring, it's exhausting, but you really can't take your foot off the gas, because you're up against a much bigger beast in these corporations.
You nailed it. You nailed it. This is something I try and tell my own team. People pick up your energy. If you're kind of only tipping your toe in and only showing up sometimes, and you're only kind of 90% of your time is focused on having fun in the capitalist system, the other 10% is your hand going up in the air, yeah, fist in the air, blah, blah, blah. That isn't going to hold any water. And when it comes to these kinds of things, it's the same exact freaking thing. It's going to be a lot of work. The people that we're up against, it doesn't matter whether we like it. It's true. They are paid enough to live well to literally suppress labor. Your enemy is earning a paycheck to block you from living your best life. So that means you, sadly, have to voluntarily do the work necessary to overcome, or you just are a cuck and bend over and take it. You have to be willing to do it sans the paycheck. And it's tiring, it's difficult, but you know what though? If you're serious, and you know people if they're serious by the level of effort and where their mind's at, where their focus is at, what they're reading, what they're doing, okay, with their time. And if they're only doing the thing that gets you over the hump with this stuff here and there, nickel and diming it, but the rest of the time is spent elsewhere, not even thinking about this, distancing themselves from the struggle, then they're a fraud and they're not really doing anything of value. We need people to start adding, hey, I put 10 minutes into labor struggle day. Now I need to put 20 minutes in. It's like we need to add that and keep gaining muscle memory for how to fight the fuck back. And it's not going to happen bitching on social media. You've got to literally start plotting and planning and building. And if you don't do that, expect nothing else to change.
Absolutely. Colin definitely cut his little monologue right there, particularly the cuck part was my favorite. That was fantastic. I want to move on to the next topic before you go, but let me just give people an update. Like I said, so right now, I believe nearly 30 plants, probably more than that, but the chart I'm looking at, 30 Ford locations has voted. So among Ford workers, the vote right now is 66% approving the tentative agreement and 34% voting no. So that's a relatively healthy margin, 66% voting yes. It's not 80 to 90% overwhelming approval, but it is the majority. So that could change, but they're almost done voting. So right now you have 66% voting yes for the agreement, which has the 25% wage increases, the cost of living adjustment being reenacted, shrinking the time to get to full pay, from 8 years down to 3, I believe it was, and some other benefits. General Motors, which not as many locations have voted because the tentative agreement with GM and Stellantis came about a week later. Right now, that's much closer. There's more plants that need to vote, but according to the publicly available tracker, 52% approval to 48% disapproval. So that's much closer. I don't have the numbers for Stellantis because not as many plants have voted. So Ford, it looks like it's going to pass. GM, I think it's going to pass, but it's much closer. And I'll get the numbers for Stellantis when I can. Now, Steve, before you go, we have to show this. I don't watch it like in real time, but I watch clips of Morning Joe, so nobody else has to. And I mean, I call
Thanks
it.
for taking it like a Take it for the team.
I didn't invent this term, but it is MS-DNC, and even with, I mean, they're having to work overtime because you got the polls for Biden he's less popular than lice right now. It's not going well for Biden. If the election were held today, we know he's going to lose. That's what the polls are showing us. But MSNBC and Morning Joe, they're slobbering over President Biden. Has no limits. Colin, if we have the clip from Morning Joe, literally, they are pom-poms for Joe Biden from this morning.
I'll tell you what I think, that very few of us and very few in the media really pay enough attention to the weight that this president carries each and every day. You mentioned most of it. Right now, he is carrying 2 twin towers of tyranny. One in Donald Trump here domestically, the other Bibi Netanyahu in Israel, who is perhaps the biggest obstacle to a two-state solution that exists today. So the president has that on his plate. He's got a meeting tomorrow with President Xi, Premier Xi in San Francisco. He's got that on his plate. But he has every hour of every day something that comes across his desk. None of us can comprehend the weight of the presidency. Every hour of every day. And as he would tell you if he were here today, it's amazing how every country in the world looks to the United States for help, for solutions, for just almost anything you can think of. Every single day. But you read every newspaper in the country, about President Biden. Within the first 2 paragraphs, they'll point out he's in his 80s. No kidding. He knows how old he is. You couldn't do it. I couldn't do it. Someone 45 years of age couldn't do what he does every day, but he does it.
Let me tell you, Meek and I have talked to so many diplomats and world leaders over the last 2-3 years, and they all say the same thing. They all say that the guy has a feel, has a grasp for geopolitics, strategies, all the angles, and he gets it. And you know, I understand that doesn't sell well on some right-wing podcast. I understand people don't want to tell the truth on other news channels because it may hurt their ratings if they actually tell the truth about President Biden there. I'm just telling you on foreign policy, talk to the foreign leaders. They will tell you Biden understands in many cases what's going on in their region better than they understand.
He has brought NATO together.
And again, NATO
and he's brought the
expanded.
world together. And the thing is, and this is the most, I'm going to lose it. Literally, I'm going to lose it. Like, they bring up his age. You bring up his age, he's 80 years old. He makes jokes about his age, and yet he's working on every level, foreign and domestically. And then are you making the argument? Is one making the argument that, oh, he's 80, therefore a voter is going to vote for Donald Trump? Like, that's the choice?
By the way, Donald Trump is 77, and
doesn't make any sense.
Even when he was in office, he had executive time where he just sat off the room in the Oval Office, and he would watch cable news around.
I'm like,
and they call Russia and China state TV, which they are. But that was something. Yeah.
So, somebody in the chat said something about messaging and work on your messaging. And I listened to this. And how many viewers, just hypothetically, how many viewers does Mika and Joe have when they do their show? How many millions of viewers?
I think when you combine TV, video, not live, but on demand too. Probably 1.5, 2 million.
Yeah, I mean, somehow or another, the worst messaging gets huge following. I mean, there's literally there's almost no way an insurgent voice can gain any kind of traction. Okay, when you're deluged with this kind of fake hopium and these rah-rah salespeople that hit largely with these boomers, because kids aren't looking at this and saying, heck yeah, man, Mika, tell them how it is, Joe Biden rocks. Okay, they're just not doing that, man. They're over there on TikTok.
But the most consistent, reliable voters are, unfortunately.
Yeah, but
over
this
65.
is my point. That right there, that's called
to be clear,
quality
because
messaging.
we do have some boomers in our audience. Not all old people. I always
no, it's always never statements get us in trouble. But the reality is that when I see that, I say to myself, there's such a low bar for ignorance to pass as quality messaging. They're getting paid to say those messages. I wonder, I'll do it after the show. I'm wondering what Mika makes to say that kind of salivating crap about Joe Biden. I wonder how much money she is paid to have that great messaging, that message discipline that allows her to say such ridiculous garbage. But there she is making millions of dollars.
$8 million
Millions.
annually.
$8 million a year to say that kind of trashish. Okay? I think the last time I got paid for doing this stuff was, never. No, I take that back. I did receive a check one time from a certain person who will remain anonymous here. I literally, bottom line.
Wow. And her husband, it looks like, no, he makes 9. Yeah.
This is the point, right?
Her hubby Joe makes 9 million. She makes 8 million.
The only people that are tone policed are activists that are fighting back and are sick and tired of hearing this crap. The only people that are like, well, actually, Steve, if you said it just like this, maybe, possibly, maybe you would have a much bigger. But look at this crap. I mean, look at Sean Hannity. This is, I mean, how many viewers does Sean Hannity get in a given week? There are no left voices on television. Everybody you see up there is a right-wing demagogue, even if they have a D next to their name. Every single one. I mean, did somebody wake up suddenly and think Joe Biden was a lefty? Genocide Joe is a lefty? Really? I mean, at the end of the day, we don't have any prayer. If we're angry, if we're insurgent, if we say things in a way to grab people's attention, shouldn't have said it that way. Shouldn't have. It's very frustrating. It's enough to make you walk away from the stuff because you got to be heard and you got to make a dent. And unfortunately, there's just no dents for people just saying things in a calm, sweet, gentle manner. It just isn't.
Well, the reality that these cosmopolitan aristocrats fail to get, because it's not just MSNBC, CNN, Fox, it's all wealthy, mostly white people that hang out at cocktail parties and have never been to Flint, Michigan, have never been and are very disconnected from what everyone watching actually lives. The people working 2 to 3 jobs, the people rationing medicine, the people having to make tough choices between certain necessities. What they don't get, all right, if you wanted to make the argument that he's doing a good job on foreign policy, I don't agree. But putting that aside, he's president of America. I'm not like America first, nationalist. I'm not saying that. Obviously, foreign policy matters, but people are largely voting on their pocketbook and their economic conditions. And these fuckers have been selling the lie, and CNBC and the New York Times, that the unemployment rate and GDP and how the stock market is doing is somehow emblematic of an economy. But that's not the economy. The economy, let me find it. The economy is really this. That is the economy in the United Corporations of America. It's that blue line of the income being stolen by Mika and Joe and their class. And that red line is, this is the union membership. I showed you the wrong one. Let me find the right
you
one.
were right. It's probably a very similar.
There you go. U.S. income inequality. That is our economy over the last 40 years. You could sell me on low unemployment. If you could sell me on GDP, on modest wage increases, that's the real economy they don't want to show you. That's a fucking scandal. That's a crisis. So I don't want to hear about low unemployment. Okay, well, let's dig into those jobs. How many of them are strong, vibrant union jobs?
Not many. Not many. That's for damn sure.
But it's just amazing. And you want to know what? I don't really care how old Joe Biden is. I would still, even though he's imperfect, I would take a comatose Bernie Sanders who's older than Joe Biden. Just because of your age doesn't mean you can't do the job. There's people that are Joe Biden's age that are still talking very lucidly. And Bernie Sanders, we just showed him. He's still barnstorming the country, whether you agree with his politics or not. He makes sense when he speaks. It's not just his age that's the problem. It's that his style of politics, he's still in the 1980s and he's a Reaganite. Just talks more softer. That's the problem. It's not just his age. It's the fact that the only thing he ran on, Steve, really, other than restore the soul and that bullshit, was a $15 minimum wage, which now is a conservative position. We need to start at a $25 minimum wage. He abandoned that right away. Abandoned a public option, which was not a great option in the first place. $2,000 checks. Stop drilling on public land. He's double drilling on public land and private land. I mean, we could keep going. He's been
we could.
He's been a massive failure. And then, I mean, he's not the only genocidal U.S. president. They're all genocidal. They just approve or commit the genocide in different parts of the world. But when you add it all in, and I don't want another Trump presidency, but I can't in good conscience, I don't tell people how to vote, but I also can't gaslight the audience to say it would be terrible under Trump, but things are pretty terrible now, if you ask me, under Biden.
I will not vote for Biden, period. Full stop. I don't care. I'll write in Mickey Mouse. I don't care. And every person that tried to run around chasing people down, shouting at them for not being willing to vote for Biden, I look at those dead babies in Gaza and I see their faces when I do it. And the people that ran around chasing and shaming people to vote for Biden, I see dead babies and I see them synonymous. So nobody better get righteous this go around, because I've got 4 years of track record of President Joe Biden plus 50 years of civil destroyer Joe Biden, going back with Anita Hill and all the other KKK crap, the crime bill, wanting to cut everything. Austerity Joe's turned to genocidal Joe. You do whatever you want, but leave your shame game somewhere else, because I'm going to slap that back like a Matumbo. No, I'm not going to deal with it.
I know you got to go make dinner for the kids. Steve, tell people where they can find you. And then we have a PSA. Tomorrow, we will be interviewing presidential candidate Cornel West. We will be interviewing Cornel West tomorrow. I haven't interviewed him in a while, so that will be live at 5. At Colin, what time is the rally? 2 o'clock Eastern. We are also going to be live. So we'll be live at 2 o'clock Eastern tomorrow, and then 5 o'clock. 2 o'clock, John Farina will be covering a protest at Columbia University on behalf of Palestinians, a ceasefire, and that. So we'll be live at 2 for that protest at Columbia. That's 2 o'clock Eastern, 11 a.m. Pacific, and then I'll be interviewing Cornel West at 5 o'clock Eastern, 2 o'clock Pacific. Steve, tell the masses where they can find you. And I want everyone, don't subscribe in an hour. Don't subscribe tomorrow. I want you to go subscribe right now to Real Progress in Action, Steve Grumbine.
And Real Progressives.
And Real Progressives on YouTube. Tell the masses where they can find you.
Yeah, please listen. Tonight, every Tuesday night, we do a Zoom call for our most recent episode of Macro and Cheese, which is the podcast that I've done for the last 5 years. Please come if you can. Tuesday nights, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have a Zoom call where we go through, we have an open discussion. It's really, really great opportunity to get to meet people and talk, and also learn and show solidarity in the movement. Every Saturday morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we release a new podcast called Macro and Cheese, which you just saw the thing. And pretty soon, I've taken 2 months off from doing the Rogue Scholar. I will be getting back to that soon. I've been dealing with some health problems, and but that will be coming back Monday, Wednesday, Friday, 12 noon Eastern Time as well. And obviously Tuesday nights when Jordan isn't busy writing books and being out in the field, I try and be on here as often as I can as well.
And slow down, my friend. You don't need to do 17 podcasts. You got to look out for yourself, too.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yes.
All right, folks.
Everybody check him out. Go subscribe. Real Progress in Action. Like he said, there's a lot of content and everybody has short attention spans, but very few channels talking about actual substance that matters and affects your life. So go subscribe. Thanks, Steve.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah. So again, tomorrow, 2:00 Eastern time, we'll be live. I believe it's Colin. It's from Columbia University. Do I have that right?
It's let me just check to make sure. Yeah, Columbia University at 2 p.m. Eastern Standard Time.
Yeah, so it'll be in New York City. If you're in New York and want to go to protest in support of Palestinians calling for a ceasefire. And then at 5:00, I'll be talking to Cornel West, who obviously for many, many years has been very, very outspoken against Israel, occupation, all of that. We also ask you kindly, you guys really came through. We got, I believe, between 150 and 200 new paid members while we were on the ground covering the UAW strike. We need to keep growing our membership so that we have the funding to continue going on the road. I was working on the book, so I haven't been on the road, but I'll be back out there soon enough on the next story. Lewis obviously has been covering East Palestine and other stories on the ground. Tina has been on the ground for us covering Cop City. John Farina is on the ground covering a lot of the calls for a ceasefire protests. On the ground reporting is very expensive, and we're, as far as I know, one of the few independent, keyword independent outlets that are doing it, but money's tight. So please, if you can, sign up, statuscoup.com/join, statuscoup.com/join. You can become a member for as low as $5 to $10 a month, statuscoup.com/join. We are going to do our monthly Zoom call with members. We're going to try to do it before Thanksgiving. If we can't get it in before Thanksgiving, we'll do it right after Thanksgiving. But that, as a member, we do a monthly call with our members through Zoom. You don't have to be on camera if you want to mute your camera. Usually go for an hour or two, and it's a lot of fun. Let me read the super chats. Tony, $1.99. Good to have Grumbine back on Status Coup. Totally agree. It's good to be back with Steve. Kat Faye, Garrett, $10. I agree with Tony D. I think that's all I got. So hopefully we get more super chats tomorrow. You could also donate whenever you want, if you can. That's statuscoup.com/donate, statuscoup.com/donate. And don't forget, holiday season's coming up. I can't think of a better gift than the Status Coup store. Get your hoodies if you're in a cold weather area, your Status Coup yoga pants, your Status Coup phone cover, your Status Coup pillow, your Status Coup hat. We have different shades, different colors for men, for women, whatever you want. That's at statuscoup.com/store. We also have our United Corporations of America shirt, our Poisoned States of America shirt, our Capitalism shirt. That's COP, Capitalism shirts. We got our Got Water shirt showing a nice glass of water. Next to it, the brown, shitty water that's spreading all over the United Corporations of America, Poisoned States of America, like I said. So definitely sport the Status Coup swag. And also, obviously, it's extra revenue for us, which we badly need. Thanks, everybody, for watching. We'll see you back here again. We're going to be live tomorrow, 2:00 Eastern, live, covering the protest at Columbia University. And then 5:00 live interview with Cornel West. Have a good night.